It is the 27th of October, and our reading this day in Baptist history is Another Despised Hero. Our verse of Scripture comes from Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 32. And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets. This date marks the anniversary of the death of Thomas Gould, Goold, founder of the First Baptist Church of Boston. An outstanding small group of 9 citizens had joined with Mr. Gould in that tremendously costly venture of establishing a church. Among that number were those who were Baptists in Great Britain before coming to the New World. William Turner and Robert Lambert had been members of Mr. Stead's Baptist Church in Dartmouth, England. Richard Goodall and his wife Mary had been members of William Kiffin's Baptist Church in London. Along with these, Mistress Mary Newell had been a Baptist in Old England as well. I should like to focus our consideration just now on William Turner. It is apparent from the fact that Thomas Gould, William Turner, and John Farnham signed so many petitions to the court that they were considered the leaders of the church. That little Baptist body became the riffraff of Massachusetts society. In the very year that Thomas Gould passed away, 1675, King Philip and his Indians ravished many parts of New England, and the attention of the state church had to be diverted from continual acts of animosity toward the little Baptist company. The Anabaptists had been persistently characterized as anarchists, hostile to the welfare of the Commonwealth. Of course, the Baptists had denied such charges, but the elite of the society continually sought to fix that designation upon them. The peril of war grew urgent, and when sufficient volunteers did step forward, the Baptists raised a company and offered their services on the frontier. The authorities realized that this created a problem for them. If they accepted the Baptist offer, it would be tantamount to acknowledging that their charges had been false. The only choice the authorities had was to refuse the Baptist offer of assistance. Isaac Backus reports it thus, and I quote, "In the beginning of the war, William Turner gathered a company of volunteers, but was denied a commission and discouraged because of the chief of the company were Anabaptists. Afterwards, when the war grew more general and destructive, and the country in very great distress, having divers towns burnt and many men slain, then he was desired to accept a commission." End of quote. Though his company had been dispersed and William Turner protested it would be difficult to summon them again, he was moved to accept the offer that was somewhat ungraciously given. Officers of the battling company were members of the First Baptist Church of Boston. William Turner was the captain, Edward Drinker was the lieutenant, Thomas Skinner was clerk, and Philip Squire was corporal. They marched to the Connecticut Valley and drove the Indians from Northampton. On May 18, 1676, Captain Turner and Captain Holike, Holioke, of Springfield, with about 150 men, surprised and attacked the main body of Indians, 700 or 800 in number. The battle near Deerfield, Massachusetts, was such a decided victory that the Indians were never able to rally their strength again. Captain Turner was slain in the battle. In commemoration of the valiant Baptist soldier, the nearby town was named Turner Falls, and became a grudging compliment to the maligned Baptist patriot. By the way, that town still proudly bears that name. Baptists had vindicated themselves, and no longer could the congregational preachers charge them with disloyalty. However, the pressure continued upon the remainder of the flock of First Baptist Church. No longer were its members imprisoned, but they continued to be haled into court and fined for their unwillingness to become Congregationalists. The membership of the First Baptist Church on March 20th, 1680, published an apologetic discourse to clear their reputation from the scandalous charges that had been laid against them. They had had the material printed in London. In all, they dealt with 8 charges that had been made. In answer to the 8th accusation that they were enemies of civil government, after making very lucid declarations, they provided the illustration of William Turner's willingness to die for his country. Part of the statement read, and I quote, "Divers of us did freely offer ourselves for the service of the country against the Indians, even in the time of their greatest distress, among whom was William Turner, whom they pleased to make captain of that company, who had been one of the greatest sufferers among us for the profession of religion. He was a very worthy man for soldiery, and Edward Drinker, who had been another sufferer, whom they pleased to make lieutenant. And by the presence of the Lord with them, they were made instruments of the preservation of the town from the rage of the heathen, who did violently beset it and break into it. But they, being there, beat them out, and after this by Captain Turner, who was commander-in-chief at the time, was an instrument in the hand of the Lord, was the greatest blow given to the Indians of any that they had received. After this they were broken and scattered, so that they were overcome and subdued with ease. In this fight did good Captain Turner lose his life." End of quote. Baptists are still maligned because we are different from much of the religious world, Protestantism included. May we so live before men that the mouths of fault finders will be stopped. To God be the glory.